The conventional explanation for why so many American suburbs lack sidewalks is cost, developers cutting corners. But federal planning documents from the post-war era tell a different story. The sidewalk wasn't forgotten. It was removed on purpose, a deliberate design choice meant to sell these neighborhoods as the opposite of the city. That choice now shapes the safety of tens of millions of Americans, and fixing it has become one of the hardest infrastructure problems in the country. In 1935, the newly formed Federal Housing Administration released Technical Bulletin No. 5, establishing the first national standards for suburban subdivisions. The document outlined precise requirements: a 50-foot right-of-way and a 24-foot paved roadway width. Yet, it remained entirely silent on sidewalks. This omission was not a simple oversight or a cheap cost-cutting measure by struggling builders. Instead, federal planners actively discouraged designs that facilitated foot traffic. Omitting sidewalks became a powerful marketing signal. In trade publications and developer brochures, the absence of concrete walkways was reframed as an asset, promising prospective buyers an escape from city regulations and a return to rural, country lane living. The resulting streetscapes did not just save money, they physically codified a new non-urban lifestyle. This non-urban aesthetic quickly solidified into a standardized development system. The FHA's planning, Profitable Neighborhoods Handbook focused heavily on minimizing developer costs and keeping property assessments low, but never mentioned pedestrian pathways. It was a risk reduction model that prioritized car-centric road layouts over foot traffic. By the late 1940s, developers realized they could turn this regulatory gap into a major selling point. In Levittown, New York, where over 17,000 homes were built, advertisements openly promoted the lack of sidewalks to emphasize low prices. Levitt and Sons sold their homes for $7,000 to $9,000, explicitly listing the absence of basements, porches, and sidewalks as cost-saving benefits that made homeownership accessible. Because the FHA gladly insured these bare-bones suburban mortgages, builders across the nation adopted the Levittown template. The omission of sidewalks ceased to be a temporary compromise for cheap housing. Instead, the federal mortgage system institutionalized it as the standard, desirable model for American middle-class life. Within 3 decades, developers built 40 million new homes, permanently cementing a pedestrian-free layout into the landscape of modern suburbia. Today, this mid-century design choice has transformed from a suburban aesthetic into a national safety crisis. When subdivisions omit sidewalks, they force pedestrians directly onto the asphalt, sharing space with multi-ton vehicles. This layout increases exposure risk, especially on wide, curvilinear roads designed to encourage high vehicle speeds. Wide residential lanes and sweepingly wide corner radii invite drivers to travel faster, while pedestrians have no designated refuge. The consequences are measurable and severe. In 2024, traffic crashes killed 7,080 pedestrians in the United States, representing an 18% share of all traffic fatalities, and a 78% increase since the low point in 2009. This is a direct consequence of suburban street geometry. According to the Governor's Highway Safety Association, 69% of these pedestrian deaths occurred on roads completely lacking sidewalks. What began as a federally backed marketing strategy to sell a country lane lifestyle now exposes millions of residents to daily physical danger. The absence of a sidewalk is a structural design failure that turns a routine walk into a high-stakes safety risk. Across the United States, the default legal responsibility for sidewalk maintenance falls on the adjacent property owner, not the municipality. Homeowners must fund repairs and bear the liability for injuries, creating a built-in incentive to resist new pedestrian infrastructure. The political fallout of this system is clear in Edina, Minnesota. During the President's A and B neighborhood reconstruction planning, the city assessed property owners $8,600 per household, payable over 15 years starting in 2026. This cost-sharing model triggered intense local backlash, pitting neighbors who demanded basic safety against those fighting the heavy financial assessment. The dispute was only resolved on December 9, 2024, when the City Council approved sidewalks for Tower Street and West Woodland Road after receiving petitions from over 80% of households, a decision Council member Ann Swenson called rather refreshing. To manage its existing infrastructure, Edina pioneered a digital approach, partnering with DeepWalk in 2025 to pilot a mobile LiDAR app that mapped 5 miles of sidewalk and 140 curb ramps in 3 days. Yet, while laser scanning technology can easily inventory assets, it cannot resolve the underlying political conflict. When safety upgrades carry an $8,600 price tag, a simple sidewalk becomes a battle over taxation and property rights. On January 17, 2017, Hoboken, New Jersey, recorded its last traffic fatality. For 9 consecutive years, this city of 60,000 residents has maintained a streak of 0 traffic deaths. This outcome was the result of a deliberate decision to align street geometry with safety policy rather than an accident of geography. In 2019, Mayor Ravi Bhalla issued an executive order establishing Hoboken's Vision Zero initiative, shifting the municipal focus from blaming pedestrian behavior to physically reshaping the streets. The City Council quickly approved the Vision Zero Action Plan, authorizing speed limit reductions and dedicated funding for retrofits. The city moved away from passive warning signs and police enforcement, choosing instead to target street design directly. In 2020, Hoboken lowered its citywide speed limit from 25 to 20 miles per hour, adjusting the baseline speed of the network. Over the next 4 years, transportation staff systematically redesigned high-conflict areas. Between 2021 and 2022, the city installed high-visibility crosswalks and curb extensions to shorten crossing distances. They daylighted intersections, removing parking spaces closest to corners to clear sightlines. They added raised crosswalks and flexible bollards to protect pedestrians at mid-block crossings. On Willow Avenue, these interventions narrowed travel lanes to 10 feet and added tree strip buffers. The physical changes forced drivers to slow down. Crash frequency along the Willow Avenue corridor dropped by 42%, and injury crashes fell by 57%. Across the entire city, the results were immediate. Between 2022 and 2023, Hoboken recorded an 18% reduction in injury crashes and a 62% reduction in serious injuries. By prioritizing physical design over driver warnings, the city proved that traffic deaths are a solvable engineering problem. This confirms that safety outcomes improve when cities actively manage their streets. Street geometry dictates driver behavior. In the United States, typical suburban roads feature 12-foot travel lanes and wide corner radii exceeding 15 feet. This open layout invites high speeds, meaning a sidewalk alone cannot protect pedestrians. Dutch residential geometry uses narrow physical dimensions to enforce safety. Under national design standards, travel lanes shrink to 8 or 10 feet, while corner turning radii are restricted to 4 or 6 feet. The math is clear. Research shows that each additional foot of lane width raises average vehicle speeds by nearly half a mile per hour, increasing crash probability by 3%. Wider corner turns also raise pedestrian conflict rates by 12%. By combining narrow lanes with physical tree buffers, on-street parking refuges, and raised crossings, this layout forces drivers to slow down before any police enforcement is necessary. These changes convert hazardous roadways into shared, low-speed spaces, proving that safety is built directly into the physical shape of the asphalt. Expanding safe pedestrian networks is a challenge of governance and incentives, rather than engineering. The fundamental barrier remains a legal system that treats sidewalks as private property liabilities instead of essential public infrastructure. When municipalities integrate these pathways directly into public capital budgets, safety ceases to be a localized neighborhood conflict and becomes routine public works. This policy shift yields clear economic returns, lowering long-term public health care and emergency response burdens. Scaling these networks nationwide requires rewriting the local codes that dictate who holds the power and the obligation to build. Suburban streets aren't missing sidewalks by accident. They were engineered to exclude them. Reclaiming these spaces means rewriting our zoning laws, prioritizing human geometry over vehicle speed. Until we do, the street remains a barrier, not a connector. How walkable is your neighborhood? Let us know below.